My name's Glyn Hughes, and I'm the Director General for the International Air Cargo Association, TIACA. And it's a great pleasure for me to speak to you today about an incredibly important topic. And I'd like to start by congratulating the great team at Logistics Insider for coming up with the Choosing Optimism campaign. And furthermore, I'd like to thank them for inviting me to speak to you today. As I said, I'm currently the Director General of TIACA. I've been in the air cargo industry now for 38 years. I started working for an airline in the UK, in fact, several airlines in the UK. Then I went to work for IATA for nearly 30 years before joining TIACA earlier this year. And it's fair to say that the world has been impacted over the last 18 months in a way that nobody foresaw, and in a way that sadly we all wish had not occurred, but sadly it did. And so I'd like to start by sending out my thoughts and best wishes for all of those who are listening to this broadcast, and hopefully that you are healthy, and hopefully that your families and colleagues are healthy, and that and I feel for all of those that have been impacted by these very tragic events of the last 18 months. And sadly, those events are still occurring around the world. So I think we all have a collective desire to see the end of this situation. As we said, it has been a horrific crisis that has impacted the whole globe for the last 18 months. It's changed almost every aspect of our lives, of how we work, of how we communicate with each other, of how we actually socially interact, of how we actually work with our families and live with each other. But out of that crisis, there has come out of that some very positive aspects in terms of some hope. I think we've shown that the global community, when it needs to work together, can work together. Whether or not that is actually finding a cure, finding a solution, finding a vaccine, creating that global community to make sure that we protect each of us by protecting all of us. It's also shown that as a community, we've started to care for each other in a way that hadn't previously been demonstrated. It's impacted how we've worked, and there's been some hopeful signs of how the air cargo industry and the logistics industry has worked together. I have to extend a huge debt of gratitude and extend my appreciation personally to all of those men and women who have been on the front line for the logistics industry and the medical workers as well. Whilst many of us, myself including, were working from home and safely protected, there were many, many tens, if not hundreds of thousands of logistical workers, of air crew, of cargo staff, of medical workers, emergency services workers, even drivers, bus drivers, etc., who were putting their health on the line every day to make sure that they could go out, and whether or not it was deliver the cargo that was so necessary to keep the community surviving, whether or not it's with food or medical supplies, or keeping the global economies open, because of course countries needed some semblance of economic ability to help fight and protect all of its citizens. So thank you all for those of you that have been involved directly. The air cargo industry has also benefited in the last 18 months from the global spotlight. Prior to the COVID situation, the aviation industry was predominantly focused on passenger movements. It was much more high profile, and cargo, even though it had a proud history of over 110 years, was very much about just getting on and getting the job done. But over the last 18 months, we've been very pleased to see that all the major news outlets, whether or not that's the written media or television news or radio or any other news broadcasting media, have been focusing on the great role and the great work that all of you do in this industry to help keep the global economy moving, to help keep the medical supplies moving, and as we said before, to help keep, as it were, society safe. And I think that appreciation for the air cargo industry is something that we hope will continue once this particular pandemic has passed. I think it also showed in the last 18 months how innovative this industry can be. If we'd have said 2 years ago that we would have air cargo predominantly flying on passenger aircraft with no passengers, and having air cargo boxes being put on seats or under seats or in the overhead compartments, or even the seats removed, people would have laughed if that had been said in the years 2019, 2018, or any time before. But we've seen that happen. So we've seen that the innovative spirit of this industry looked at the problems that it was facing and said, we need to find solutions. So people were there saying, how can we get the cargo in every space of that plane to make sure that we can get as much medical equipment around the world as possible, as much PPE, face masks, hand sanitizers, etc. So there was that great innovative spirit that came about. And also we have to say thank you to many of the governments as well, because they then actually approved the safety certification for the aircraft and to make sure that those innovative solutions found support from the regulators. So I think there has been some bright sparks, but now we need to make sure that there is a time for the industry to actually console each other. We've sadly lost a number of very close friends, colleagues, and some people have lost family members, and that's very tragic, and we should never forget those that we've lost. But we should also, in the memory of those that we've lost, make sure that this type of situation can never occur again. And I think as the air cargo industry, we have a great opportunity to take some of the lessons that we've learned over the last few years and translate that into a new industry going forward. And this is something that I like the way of choosing optimism as the phrase for this particular campaign, because we should always be inspired by history, motivated by history, to make sure that we select only the best parts and therefore avoid the worst. So we need to make sure that this air cargo industry is protected going forward, that we have a more effective environment that is actually well, first of all, for us as individuals, we need to protect our own health. I think we need to take the lessons that we've learned in the last 18 months and make sure that we can translate that into looking after ourselves, getting more exercise, eating as well as we can, taking care, listening to our bodies when we hear and feel of certain conditions, etc. And more importantly, looking after those that we work with, that we interact with, family members, because it's only during those times of crisis do we really realize how much people mean to us that we work with and that we live with. So I think that's something important to go forward, excuse me, is to get that work-life balance correct and make sure that we take care of all members of society, not just ourselves, but those who are less fortunate. And as an industry, I think we also have to look at our sustainable future. I think we have to build back better. We have to look at how we can actually improve the industry to make it more inclusive. We need to make sure that globally we can attract and create the right working environment so the next generation of young men and young women, as well as those more established in the working place, can find a home in the air cargo and logistics industry, which can actually nurture their skills and their talents, create a home where everybody can feel part of that community. And we can leverage everybody's unique perspectives on life and on business to create a much better industry for everybody, serving the global shippers and the global society. So as I say, I think it's very important we also look at the environmental side of the situation. We have to take care of the planet. We have to take care of the people. We have to look at the environmental side in terms of wastage, in terms of CO2 and our environmental footprint. We have to look at things as a community rather than as individuals. But of course, a community is built up of individuals, so we each need to do our little part to make it better for the whole. So I'm very optimistic about the prospects of this industry going forward. I'm very optimistic about the lessons that we've learned. I think we will see an enhanced industry in terms of more digitalized, more connected. I think we should see a more enhanced and inclusive workplace. As I say, I think we should be a closer-knit community. And I think it's important, once again, to say congratulations to the team for putting this Choosing Optimism program together. My thoughts and best wishes goes out to all of those people listening to this particular broadcast. And I think collectively, as a community, we can look forward to a much better tomorrow. So my thoughts and best wishes are with you all. And thank you very much to the great team at Logistics Insider.